What's good, Wizards fans? It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott. Today, we're going to dissect and grade Deni Avdija's third season in the NBA with the Washington Wizards. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Download the game. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so we're going to get into Deni Advija's 2022-2023 season. We just want to talk about a couple of stats. We're going to get into a grade for his third season with the Wizards, and also whether we think he's going to get a contract extension at the end of next season, because we know his contract is a contract year for Deni. So it's a really, really big year for Deni Advija around next season. So we're going to start out. What was one key stat that stood out to you this past season for Deni Advija?
Well, to me, the key stat to me that stood out, and the reason this stat stood out is because a lot of people say that with his ability to ball handle and his vision as a passer, why not give him a shot at maybe bringing the ball up? All right, so stat to me is turnovers per game, right? So Bradley Beal committed 2.9 turnovers per game, whereas Deni committed 1.6. So I think we all can agree that Bradley Beal has had his issues with turnovers, bouncing the ball off his foot. There's, especially in clutch time, which is just a no-no, especially for a guy in his tier as far as, being that guy. So that's the stat that stands out to me. The reason for that is obviously we're going to talk more in the offseason about potential moves, but as far as where his place is in his organization, I think that they need to give him a lot more opportunities to bring the ball up, a lot more opportunities to be a playmaker, because his vision, he has good vision as a passer. And you see that because there's a lot of times where, and we're going to talk about him driving the lane, but there's a lot of times where driving the lane, he dishes the ball out, he's finding people inside. So he has skills as a, passing the ball, and he has good vision. So yeah, that's the stat that stood out to me, because I think they need to get more out of Deni. A lot of complaints that I've seen this offseason as far as Deni Advija and how he fits with the Wizards and how he fits with the system under Wes Unseld Jr. is a lot of people feel like he's mismanaged, not being used right. And to a certain degree, I actually agree. And, if you look at the evolution of him playing in DC first, under Scott Brooks, he's standing in the corner. So, under Wes Unseld, he's been given the ball a lot more and having a lot more opportunities to be that playmaker. But I think that for him to be successful, I want to see him bring the ball up a lot more. And I want to see him play make a lot more and really get the most out of his vision as a passer.
Definitely 100%. And we'll probably talk about it at the end. Jake Fisher came out with a report about the GM search with the Wizards. So we're going to talk about that probably for about a minute or two towards the end. But yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of people want to see him bring the ball up. A lot of people talk about him being a point guard. It's challenging for him to be a point guard, because I remember one time he brought the ball up as a point guard, and Javon Carter for the Bucks, who's one of the best defenders in the NBA, probably the top half in the NBA. Deni had to turn his back to him because you could barely get the ball up, because little guys like that, they're pesky. They get up under him. They're trying to swipe the ball away. So it's just hard for him to bring the ball up. But that is a good point there. Now, of course, Brad, he has a higher usage than Deni. He dribbles the ball a lot more. So he's going to have more turnovers. And, Brad in the clutch, he struggles with turnovers too. But yeah, I think Deni initiating the offense. I mean, you saw some of the games where, Brad was out or Kuzma was out, and he had more ball handling responsibilities. That Celtics game, where Brad and Kuz were out and him and Porzingis were playing really well, where Deni was able to find open shooters, and Deni was just being more aggressive himself anyway. And after the trade deadline, when he had his turbo moments, he looked like a good guy that was getting the rebound, pushing it, bringing the ball up. That's what we saw in FIBA, where he just had control. And he was that point forward for Israel overseas. So that is the role that would best suit him. But it's just hard for him to do that because, of course, you had Brad, you had Zingas, you had Kuz, so you had the solid three. Of course, those guys are going to have the ball in their hands for the most part. And when Deni started out as the starting three, the small forward, he kind of was that catch and shoot kind of guy where they kind of was kind of in the corner again, like Scott Brooks, where he just didn't get many opportunities to really handle the ball like that.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is this also, and then here's another point to the dynamic of what we're talking about is that it helps Brad out. We don't have to depend so much on him on the offense on Bradley Beal. I think that giving him more responsibility with bringing the ball up. Like you said, under certain matchups, and I think that's the biggest key to this. Is not what Sunset tends to kind of stick with lineups. And I'm not saying he should bring the ball up every game because when going against these pesky guards, man, yeah, he's going to struggle. So under the right matchups, I think he should be able to do that. And we said it time and time again, man, when his offense flows to KP or Kuz, depending on what they go next year, but it just flows smoother, man. It's a smoother offense because Bradley Beal, I think we need him to step back and be that shooting guard, be the scorer. Don't focus on bringing the ball up. Don't focus on trying to be a point guard. Just focus on being that scorer because that's what got him paid. Look, Bradley Beal didn't get paid for his vision as a passer, man. He got paid because he's a scorer. So, him getting back to that zone of being a scorer, I mean, I think it's a win-win for his franchise. I really do. If they go forward, obviously there's a lot of what ifs, man, because I get it. We're going into the off season. We're in the beginning of the off season, but I think we all know that the likelihood of Bill being around long term is highly likely. So yeah, to me, I want to see the ball more in Deni's hands because he's shown that he has some athleticism. He can play make. He has great vision, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. But when he adds that shot, man, he could be a weapon. It's just he's got to work on his game a little bit this offseason. And driving the lane is one of those goals that he's got to get better at driving in the lane with some confidence. Because again, we said this all season, man, that a lot depends on his confidence level. When he has a high level of confidence, he's a highly productive player. When his confidence is low, you see a different player in Deni, man. So, and like I said, I'm gonna get into that because there's one of my keys with him. But he's got a lot to work on. But I think that if he really puts time into his game this offseason, he could really have a really good year next year, man. A really sneaky, productive year for this team, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So you're going to get more into Deni. But before we do get into that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Buying tickets to the DC Defenders, I know the games have been packed lately because they're in the playoffs, but Gametime will make it easier to get DC Defenders tickets for sure. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Images of seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection, etc. as well. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime app guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress of the Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code using LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show, we will grade Corey Kispert for the 2022-2023 season. All right, so the stat that stood out to me, I just looked on StatMuse. Now StatMuse is charging people now for looking up stats and stuff. There's like a paywall on that. But looking at games without Bradley Beal this season, I'm not just saying, negative stuff about Brad and comparing Deni, but games without Brad, and then I could look up numbers without Kuz as well. Deni averaged 11 points per game without Bradley Beal, and then when Brad played, he averaged 8 points a game. Deni also averaged 7 boards a game without Brad this season, and then with Brad, he averaged 5.9. And then he averaged 4 assists per game without Brad, and then he averaged 2 assists with Brad this year. So it just shows his usage goes down and that he does take a step back. I just want to see how he plays with Brad. Can he be successful with Brad? Can he be successful with Porzingis? Now, seeing him play with Porzingis that Celtics game, he had 25 points, and he played really well against Jason Tatum, against Jaylen Brown. Of course, he's taking that backseat to Bradley Beal, but can you do this when everybody's there, when everybody's healthy? I really like the way he played in that last stretch of the game. And then Tommy Shepard brought up Deni playing without Rui. So it's just like, why does somebody have to leave or somebody has to be out for Deni to be successful and step up and reach his full potential? So I want to see him reach his full potential when they have a full roster, or are they going to consolidate and trade one of the solid three? Like, what moves is the new GM going to make? Are they going to keep Deni Avdija? Is he still going to be on the roster this next season? Because, he could be a trade piece to upgrade at the point guard position. Who knows? But I just noticed that when, somebody's always out, that's when Deni steps out. Now, Deni had a really good season rebounding the ball. He had 20 boards in one game. Had a couple double-doubles in here and there. I thought he was more of a physical rebounder than Kristaps Porzingis at times. So that's something that I really liked. And when he does rebound the ball and push, I think that's when he's at his best. Pushing, dishing, and diming, throwing lobs to Gafford, throwing lobs to Porzingis as well. I think they have a really good 1-2 punch. Him and Porzingis have a really good chemistry. And you talked about working out this all season, worked out with Drew Hanlon. Another stat that stood out to me was his three-point percentage and how it got worse this off season. Going into the off season last year, I was like, yeah, he's going to improve his three-point percentage, and somehow it got worse. He shot 31% from the three his rookie year, 31% from three his sophomore year, and then 29% from the three-point line. So that was really concerning for me. And, he said this offseason he wants to work on his left hand and finishing around the rim. So that is something that he has to really, really work on, shooting the ball. So, and there was a point where he was starting, they took him out because he was a liability from the three-point line. Teams weren't even guarding him. There was one game against the Lakers where LeBron just wouldn't even go out there and guard Deni. So that's something he definitely has to work on this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with Deni and really with all these young guys, man, is that two factors. Number one, we got to know what the division is going for this franchise, because, again, if they go forward with the solid three, then he's a trade piece, because why would you extend him? But then if it's a rebuild or if you're trying to retool, then it makes more sense to potentially extend him. So it all depends on what the vision is, what whoever the new general manager that comes in, what his vision is for this franchise. But two, and more importantly, is, roles, not just for him, but for everybody on the roster. They got to define what roles are. Like I said, the role for Bradley Beal, and like I said, I'm not going to harp on Brad. That's a whole nother conversation. I believe, he did, we're not talking about Brad. So it's nothing against Brad, but I believe that Bradley Beal, when he sits back and he's that scoring Bradley Beal that we love to watch, the score, then it makes it so much better for everybody around him. KP, Kuz, and Deni Avdija, when everybody eats. And that's what's so surprising about the usage rate, and a lot about, with Bill being the guy bringing the ball up, is that, he was the one that came up with the slogan, everybody eats. And then now a lot of people are hungry a little bit on the offensive end. So, it's just, we got to define roles, man. Let him be the scorer and define, who's going to do what in his offense. Because if we go out and get a point guard, then, what is Deni's role then? If we go out here and we get a point guard, then what's, so I think there's a lot of dynamics in this, defining roles and what is the vision for this franchise, because it is really hard to determine, because, again, we don't have a general manager right now, and we don't really know right now what the vision is. We right now we're thinking that we're going to have the solid three back. It may be a whole different roster in a couple of months. So it really depends, man. And it really affects Deni a lot as far as where he is and where his career goes. But we know what he can do defensively. He's a stopgap. He can defend at a high level. We talk about his vision, his ball handling, and he has improved his confidence in driving the lane. Now, one thing he needs to improve on outside of 3-point shooting is finishing through contact. It's sometimes, man, it looks like he shies away from contact. He needs to work on finishing through contact. But obviously a 3-point shot, man. Another thing, consistent dog. We talked about it not too. The fact that his confidence level determines what kind of Deni you're going to get from the night to night. Be consistent. Have that dog in him, because he's shown that, look, he's a little cocky when he's got confidence. He's doing that little too short, the X factor, all that. So, he's got some dog in him, man. Yeah, exactly. So, it's got to be consistent. Bring that dog every night, man. The thing about the NBA is your shot's not going to drop every night, but you can't let your confidence go down, man. You got to keep rolling. That dog, Jordan Goodwin. That's a great example. Jordan Goodwin, because Jordan Goodwin is not one of these guys going to light up the stat sheet, but his effort is highlight. He brings a dog every night, and that's what I want to see from Deni, man. Bring that dog every single night. Bring that confidence every night. And I think that if he can be consistent on that end, and one more thing, maturity. And I'm gonna say this: I do think he is a high character guy, but when I say maturity, is this complaining to the refs?
Yeah.
He's got to minimize on that. You can't sit there and complain and sit down on the other side of the end of the court and complain to the refs. Look, take your licks, keep it moving. That comes along with maturity, and So outside of that, man, I just want to see improvement. Work on your game this offseason, and I believe if his confidence can stay up, if he can stay consistent, and he really works on his offensive tool bag, man, it could be a breakout year for Deni Advija. But he's got to work on his game.
Yeah, the point about maturity as well, complaining to the refs, yeah, he certainly has to work on that. There's just too many times, and there's a lot of times where he is fouling people, he's still complaining to the ref. It's like, Deni, you had your hands on it, you're being a little too physical. And in the league, this is how the league is called. Like when he was guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that whole Thunder game, yes, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was getting a lot of calls, but you just can't keep complaining to the refs. And in that Thunder game where we lost, he made a tough layup, but he complained to the ref because he thought he wanted an and one. And guess what? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander took the ball off the court and threw it to, I think it was Lou Dort or somebody. They got a wide open layup, and we lost that game by like 3 points. That was a huge swing in the game. And I didn't blame that loss on Deni, but that was one of the maturity factors right there. It was like, hey, man, you make a layup, get back up, don't celebrate, get back on defense. So that's a huge part. Like you said, finishing, the confidence, the mentality, having that dog in you, the physicality. The turbo games, he was pushing guys off, getting to the basket. Yes, it's a push off, but I just love the physicality. So another stat too with Kuzma too, instead of just harping on Brad, without Kuz, Deni averaged 14 points a game in 14 games without Kyle Kuzma. He averaged 7 boards. He had 25 and 10 in the Boston game, 21 and 11 in the Spurs game. Double-double, 15 points, 10 boards against Orlando. Had another double-double without Kuz, 20 points and 13 boards against Charlotte. Another double-double. So when he played without Kuz, he was a double-double machine. And then the whole Rui thing, he averaged 7 points with Rui this year, and he averaged 7 points without Rui Hachimura as well. So that he averaged 8 points. Not much of a difference, like Tommy Shepard said. So with that whole thing. So we're going to get into next, we're going to get into, do we think he's going to get a contract extension and the grade for Deni's season? We'll wrap it up. But before we do, we'll get a quick word from Brandon.
Yes, sir. Tonight's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. And you're wondering, how does it work? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. That is right. Repeat. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you can watch. This includes the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, PGA golf, college football, men's and women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe, and fast. Withdrawals currently operational in over 30 states and our neighbors to the north and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks.
Yes, sir. So, do you what was your grade for Deni this season, 2022?
Woo! I gave him a B. I did see progress, but the shot, man, he's got to work on that shot, man. And the reason for that, it is a perimeter centric league. I mean, you got bigs out here shooting 3-point shots, so he's got to work on the shot because it's just. That's the way the game is, man. Like I said, it's a perimeter-driven league. So he's got to work on the shot. He's got to really work on his mentality, keeping that dog in him, man. Even if you're having an off-shooting night, have that dog mentality, that Mamba mentality. And like I said, complaining to the refs, maturity, and driving the lane through contact and with confidence. I mean, look, he posterized a few people this year. I'm just saying. So he's got the ability to do it. It's just, again, confidence. But And one thing I failed to mention is keeping up what he already does well. Work on your game, but keep that dog on defense because that's his MO and his vision. Definitely keep that. But yeah, I gave him a B, man. I think he improved in some ways, but then obviously with the shot. So yeah, kind of middle ground. I gave him a B.
Yeah, kind of mid. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, B minus. I thought defensively, he always gives good effort. He guards 1 through 5. Gives probably the most effort. DeLon Wright, you can argue Jordan Goodwin, but as far as sliding his feet and stepping up and trying to challenge the best scorer on the other team, he always steps up and takes that challenge. So I give him credit for that. The turbo stretch was really good, but then he had a stretch where he's really struggled, and then towards the end of the year, he was really good when Brad and Kuzma sat out. So there's just a lot of inconsistency. Like you said, the 3-point shooting, 29% from 3 is just super underwhelming, very disappointing, especially after training with Drew Hanlon. He was supposed to improve in that department. In FIBA, he kind of shot the 3 ball kind of well, but he didn't really shoot many of them. And him just being a liability on the court just because he can't shoot the 3, that was disappointing as well. And the fact that he was starting and they had to move him out of the lineup, and they decided Wes Unseld Jr. decided to put Gafford in the starting lineup just because of that reason. So that was a concern. I think he's just better suited to come off the bench as well. And then it's just up in the air. I don't know how the new GM is going to feel about him, whether they want to move forward with him or not, or use him as a trade piece. And just thinking back when Tommy Shepard even drafted him, how is he a good fit next to Bradley Beal when he needs the ball in his hands to be successful? He needs to be that point forward to be successful. He's not a guy that really like Corey Kispert, where he's just a shooter. He's moving out the ball and can do things and not need the ball in his hands. Deni's at his best when he has the ball and he's pushing it. But to give him a grade, yeah, like all the points that you hit on, the complaining to the refs, putting your head down when you're not playing well. I thought he did a little bit better than last year. Celebrating a little bit when you score, not getting back on defense. Offensive game, started to dunk the ball a little bit more. Still needs to finish a little bit better. Right now, 3 feet to 10 feet away from the basket, he shot 42%, which was like 8th or 10th worst on the team. Behind Brad, behind Kuz, behind Monte Morris, behind Kispert, behind Porzingis, of course, behind Gafford, of course. All those guys, shot better than him around that range. So he still needs to improve in finishing around the rim too. So, I'm around a B minus, maybe even C plus at times. Just kind of a mid-tier season, really good and would tease you at times, and then he would just kind of go from turbo and slow down and kind of get back down to earth.
I mean, the problem with him was with the whole team consistency. Mm-hmm. I swear to God, I've said that word so many times this year. Consistency, very inconsistent team overall. And looking at Deni, man, it's just he mirrors the team overall. It's just a very inconsistent. Like you said, on a good night, he plays well. He's dominant. But then when that confidence is low, man, it's a completely different player. So he's really got to work on his game. He's got to work on his offensive game because, like I said, defensive wise, he's there. With the vision for his position, he's a good passer for his position. But he's got to work on his offensive repertoire, man. Especially because depending on the vision for this team depends on how much responsibility he has. If they go through a retool, there's going to be a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, man, especially if he wants to earn that bag. He's going to have to step up because, again, it's really tough to kind of plan because you just don't know what this new GM is going to come in and do. Bob Myers might come in and go through a full rebuild, whereas, another GM might come in and try to go around, build around a solid 3. So you just don't know. And, another dynamic to that is how much rope is Ted Leonsis going to give the new GM, but that's a whole nother conversation. But, Deni, I think, no pun intended, but the ball is in his court. It behooves him to work on his game because this is a very important offseason for him. This is a contract year. So regardless if you're going to be in a Wizards uniform or not, you're playing for your next contract. So it behooves him to work on that game because, again, whether it's in the 202 or if it's somewhere else, he's got to work on his offensive game. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with mentality. He's got to have the dog mentality. Offensively, he's got to be a dog. And if he keeps that mentality, man, you will see a different player next year. So,
yeah, definitely needs to work on a mid-range game and in-between game for sure. And, of course, the 3-point game and left hand finish around the rim. So, yeah, he's got a lot to work on. And he's not going to be playing in FIBA this year, so he's just going to be focusing on his game. I won't get too excited about any workout videos, any, hype stuff over the offseason. I'm just not going to get prescribed to it, but I'm going to love to see him working out. I won't watch any Instagram videos or Instagram post stories, stuff like that from him. But Rebounding gets an A for me. Just quickly, do you think he gets a contract extension after this season? Do you think he'll be here in 2024 or 2025?
Oh man! And before we move on, talking about the videos, if we went off videos, man, we would still be believing that Ben Simmons could shoot a 3-pointer. So I'm just saying, don't go off the videos, man. The videos will lie to you. Will he get an extension? Again, man, that's hard because you just don't know the vision. Like I said, all right, my perspective is if I'm the general manager, if I move forward with Kyle Kuzma, KP, and Bill, I don't see where you can afford to extend Deni because you're really, I mean, especially where's Ted Leonsis and all this? Does he want to go into the luxury? Is he, where's his head and all this? Because again, with this core going forward, you're already dangerously close to a lot, not the luxury tag. So it just depends on what the vision is. Because if they rebuild or retool, yeah, I can see him being extended. I can see them having kind of a long-term place in DC. But again, with Kyle Kuzma on the roster, I just don't see any wiggle room for us to extend Deni Advija. And I think he does have enough value to where we can get something to return in the trade market. I think he does have trade value. Now, does he have more or less than Corey Kispert at this point? Again, I mentioned earlier, this is a perimeter-centric league, man. Corey Kispert could have more value just because of his 3-point shot and his ability to cut. His offensive repertoire is a lot more advanced than Deni's, man. But on the flip side, we know Corey Kispert ain't a defensive guy like Deni. So it just depends. It really depends on the new general manager. And that's why I'm hoping they hurry up and sign somebody, man. Because if we just, we gotta, because we're getting close to that time, man. We're getting close to the draft. So, we've got to really figure out what we're trying to do because right now we are a ship without a rudder. We're just floating around. So we need a direction here. So I think that question, man, is an outstanding question. I just think it really is better answerable in maybe 2 weeks to a month from now when we have a GM, because right now we just don't know what the long-term vision is for this team. So
right. Yeah, and we're gonna get to the GM talk. We're actually gonna get into that next episode. But yeah, Deni right now, it's up in the air. I'll probably bet on no for the contract extension, but after the season. But yeah, we're gonna get into we're gonna wrap it up for today. I just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Now for everydayers, tomorrow on the show we're gonna talk about Corey Kispert's grade, and we will talk about the GM search for sure tomorrow. So I just want to thank you guys for rocking with us. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell. Hail to the Wizards.